Welcome to Discovering Disabilities in Dearborn. My name is Ali,
I'm Rashad.
and today we're joined by Abdullah Hammoud, the mayor of Dearborn. How are you doing, Mayor?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Great,
Good,
great.
good.
We've been trying to make this episode happen for a while now.
Forgive me. I know I've delayed it a few times, so forgive me.
We're honored and very excited for this episode and to just talk about disabilities, especially in the context of Dearborn and what Dearborn is doing to support individuals with disabilities. So without further ado, just tell the community a little bit about you. I know most people hopefully know who you are, but if you want to give them a quick spiel.
First of all, assalamu alaikum, everybody tuning in. What I tend to say is most folks say Abdullah Hammoud, the mayor. I tend to say Abdullah from Fortson. Class of 07, that's probably like my greatest accolade on my resume. Born and raised in the city of Dearborn, son to two immigrant parents, second oldest of 5 children. Really just, I'm a resident with a little extra responsibilities, how I describe it. So here we are.
Beautiful and humble. We appreciate
Most importantly, Mariam's father, Fatma's husband. I gotta put that out there.
Allah yakhliq iyahun, inshallah. Okay, just to jump in, we want to talk about any experiences that you might have had with people with disabilities growing up, being a Fortson graduate, and just throughout your college career, being a native of Dearborn. Do you have any experience with working with people with disabilities?
Yes, and more than just growing up. Even now, between my extended family and, a lot of my cousins, there are many who have differing needs. And so very familiar with that, life challenges are different for each and every single individual. And from a municipal perspective, the best thing that I can do as mayor and the policies that we enact and the investments that we can make is try to eliminate how visible those capabilities are, making sure that you have the appropriate investments that those who have disabilities are able to utilize the same functions or the same community assets just like any other child or any other family member. That's really the goal. It's not to make it so it's like, oh, here is where, for example, if we make a parks investment, here is where children with disabilities play, and here's where children without disabilities play. That's like the worst thing you can do. The best thing you can do is make it so that all children can play together regardless of the ability that they have. Eliminating that visibility. And so just based on, my upbringing with extended family, with cousins, with children of relatives who have those differing abilities, I've learned really through their eyes, watching them as parents have to overcome those obstacles, those challenges, and do what they have to do to do best by their children.
Beautiful. So it sounds like Dearborn tries their very best to make everything very equitable so we won't create that disparity where disabilities here and non-disabilities there.
It hasn't in the past, but we're trying to correct that. We announced a very major parks investment. I know that'll be coming up, and we'll speak to some of the investments that we're going to make. But we have a disabilities commission. Even prior to my time as mayor, when I was a state representative, the disability commission for the state used to exist, but it was kind of eliminated and hidden in some random department. We actually introduced legislation to bring it back to the forefront and to expand it and to make sure that people from all across the demographics from the state of Michigan, in order to basically act as a guiding authority and a recommending body to the state legislature and to the governor as to how best to create policies to accommodate for individuals with differing abilities. So now as mayor, we have our disability commission and we've expanded it. Previously, it was limited to just Dearborn residents, but we found was Dearborn residents are great, but sometimes having organizations that are primarily focused and improving the quality of life for those with disabilities, having them at the table is also extremely important. So Dearborn-based organizations and businesses. So we've expanded our board to include those Dearborn-based nonprofits and such in order to get their expertise and their experience at the table to help, again, be the recommending authority to the mayor's office and to city council about what we can do moving forward.
Beautiful. You said quality of life, and I just wanted to highlight our research study that is predicated on the quality of life and improving it for Arab Americans with disabilities. We want to assess the quality of life of people with disabilities in our community here, the Arab Americans, and compare that to non-Arab Americans and see if there's a difference and what is contributing to that difference. Going back to what you said about policies, could you tell us a little bit more about what kind of policies are in place that support individuals with disabilities here in Dearborn?
So, you have typically the state and federal requirements about ADA accessibility and any kind of remodeling or construction that you're doing now in any of your buildings, your facilities. If a new restaurant is opening up and it has a second floor, if it's not grandfathered in and now it has to have an elevator, right? It takes all these things into account. But what I would tell you is, when we're making investments in parks and green spaces, there's nothing that requires you to have inclusive playscapes or making sure rather than having gravel or wood chips on the ground, which is difficult for some who might have mobility issues, to have more of a foam softscape structure or a hardscape structure for those individuals to be able to use those services. So we're looking at best practices from across the country and across the globe, really, and trying to target our investments in that direction, really based on input from families. You know, take our homecoming festival. Every year prior to us coming in, there was the All-Stars Day, which was the Friday that the Homecoming Festival opened up. The first few hours was open to those with disabilities. And we've recently been partnering with Blue Hands on this issue. Rather than just having 2 hours on a 3-day festival, this year we're having it every single morning of every single day the festival is operating, to have all-stars limited hours so that the individuals with families with differing abilities, they can come exclusively on their own before anybody else comes to the festival at all and just enjoy it themselves. This is especially a need for those that have that need guides or guardians with them to attend the rides, or the loud noises might be too much, things of that nature. So we're starting to expand that to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So there's many things that we're just learning from. Last year we did the Haunted Trail at Ford Field, and then families of those with children with differing abilities reached out saying, hey, how can we make this family friendly for kids with different abilities? Maybe earlier on, before you open it up at night, can it be available to families with kids with, who are a little bit younger, who don't want to get as scared as much, or who might have different disabilities, who want to approach it differently? And we said we welcome all the ideas. If you bring it to us, we can then build that programming in. And so it's also with experience. We learn. We don't always get it right the first time. But inshallah, with time, with practice, with people's input, that's really what drives us. That's how we go about it.
I know Rashad wants to ask a question, but I just want to interject briefly. When you say you take people's input, how should people reach out to you guys and give you this input?
Yeah, I'm probably too accessible. But what I tell folks is, emailing me is like the best form. You can just email mayor@dearborn.gov. But I typically run into people at the massages, run into people at community functions. They'll see me at dinner, they'll walk up, and just, throw a suggestion out my way. Or, how you guys reach out to me here. You just shoot me a DM, and I'm fairly responsive. I won't answer your DM if I don't want to respond. And
That's
so,
fair. Yeah.
Because there's that function on like business profiles. Like if I'm not following you, all the messages go automatically to the restricted box. So I don't see it.
Yeah.
So I have to scour, really go through there to make sure that I'm finding the right messages. And so sometimes there's a lot of complaints about taxes, but every once in a while I'll see a positive suggestion about things that can move the city forward.
I think you being so open and being available for people to reach out to is very important quality as a mayor, and that's what makes you a good mayor. One of the qualities that makes you a good mayor. But aside from that, I want to mention your background in public health. You have a master's in public health, and your wife is a doctor.
Correct.
Those two things combined, do you ever hear stories from your wife or any personal experiences from yourself where you've seen how people with disabilities are treated or how they're accounted for or not accounted for in the health field?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, I'm the one who never got into medical school. My wife is the one who did get into medical school, so she's the smarter one. And so I defer to her on a lot of the guidance and input as it pertains to kind of like some of the public health policies that we implement. I also want to recognize Ali Abazid, who is my public health director, who is just a phenomenal mind. A brilliant mind from the city of Dearborn, Syrian, and his experiences. And he came from the National Institute of Health in D.C., which is the global leader on public health. And so I really, again, look to other people's experiences more than mine. What's most important here, though, was centering the families who live through this each and every single day. That's the greatest thing you can do. I'll give you the perfect example. I got some early schematics of what an inclusive park can look like. From my perspective, it checks the boxes. I have no idea, though. Right? I have relatives who have children who have disabilities, or different extended family members who have differing needs, but I've never experienced it myself firsthand. And so, while I may look at the picture and it looks great, what we're going to do now is bring in families who have individuals who have disabilities, or those who have children who have disabilities, and ask them, when you look at this picture, what do you see? Because you're going to know the small nuances. And some of the things, for example, is this playscape is great. Can I roll my wheelchair from the parking lot all the way to it? Things like that you just don't think about. How far is the bathroom, and does the bathroom have, is it ADA accessible, and does it have the appropriate amenities inside? Is the I'll never forget, kind of like the thing that you sit and then you kind of turn it around. I don't know what it's called. Nonetheless, somebody brought forward saying, can my daughter who has no disabilities sit in it with my son who has a wheelchair, and both of them enjoy it together? And so you really begin to look at the nuances and the very small details that really only firsthand individuals who've experienced it firsthand would know about it. So that's how I default to. My wife checks me when I'm wrong on something. My public health director checks me. My Disabilities Commission provides us input and guidance. And so I tend to not just rely on my own experiences, although I've seen through my public health experience years ago, but that's not enough when it comes down to this.
Yeah, you mentioned like even the wood chips and stuff like that. People don't, it doesn't really cross the average person's mind.
Or even shade.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think about having shade when I'm playing at a slide for my daughter.
Yeah.
Although I should, right? I'm somebody who has, I have severe eczema, I have severe rosacea. And so I always have my sunblock. If I don't wear my sunblock, I'm looking like a tomato walking outside, or I'm looking like I'm always blushing. But there are families who know that they need shade,
right.
Or various sensory play objects, right? It's a different type of accessibility nature. Or making sure that, the playscape area is fenced in. So if you have a child that tends to run off right away, they can't escape the play area because you have it fenced in. So there's so many different levels to inclusivity. And Dearborn is only beginning to dabble in this space and beginning to make the appropriate investments so that all of our families and all of our children can enjoy the amenities that we have.
Do we have any projected timeline for how the parks are going to look in the future or anytime soon?
Yeah, so, we just got approval to construct the 4 new parks, which is less like your slides and swings and more of a park like you see like a Campus Martius in downtown Detroit, like you might see in a Boston, D.C., New York. But even those parks will have inclusive features and playscapes. Like the turf that we'll use is actually ADA accessible turf. So anybody on a wheelchair can roll right over it, or somebody that has a different motor ability will be able to go right into it with different play amenities. In terms of like the actual inclusive nature playscapes that we want to build out, we're probably going to put those out for what we call bid. It's a request for proposal that we put out. And based on timeline, we'll probably have somebody locked in by the fall who wants to construct them. But, they'll probably be doing the work in 2024. And so, inshallah, our hope is to have them, done by end of next year.
Beautiful.
Which is a fairly quick turnaround.
The parks are amazing. And I think the kids and even adults will greatly benefit from these changes. But we kind of want to talk about some other resources that might not be really well known to the community. Any other resources that can come to your mind regarding people with disabilities and that might not be well known to our community?
It's a great question. It's an area I obviously need to educate and inform myself more on. What we tend to do at the city, if there's a family that's struggling in a particular issue, we tend to refer out to the nonprofits that specialize in this space because they're the leading authorities in the respective field, and it's better to speak with them who can provide you all those resources. So again, I point out Blue Hands, it could be Starfish Services. There's so many others that you can reach out to. Yeah, Korea Dream. Forgive me, I'm on the podcast. But honestly, you're the ones who have the information that are pumping it out to the public. And I think what's more important is pumping it out in multiple languages. That's one thing for certain that we know from an accessibility standpoint, is making sure that you receive the information in the language that you're most comfortable with. I can speak about one amenity that we did with Amity. So with Amity, when I was a state rep, we secured about $2.8 million in grants. What we did was we put it into an endowment fund. What an endowment fund does is every year it accumulates money, and from it makes investments, and a portion of the investments are used to pay for some special project. What we decided to do is we paid for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which is a free book is mailed to every child between the age of 0 and 5 for free forever. So we secured this in perpetuity for the history of the city of Dearborn. What's beautiful is if your child has vision issues, the Dolly Parton Imagination Library is actually partnered with the American Braille Association and will mail you books in Braille, which is remarkable. And again, this is at no cost to the family, and the goal is to get 60 books to every child before they enter kindergarten at minimum. And what's beautiful is for any families that are multilingual or bilingual at the household, if a parent or is a fresh immigrant or refugee where English is second language, it also helps strengthen their ability to read English. And what all the metrics show you is if you improve reading outcomes, you actually improve lifetime earnings for that individual. And so it's a phenomenal project, and we're excited to finally have it here in the city of Dearborn.
Are there translations within the books?
There aren't translations, so it's not multilingual, but so right now all the books are in English, and then they offer the Braille for those who need.
Was this work kind of inspired by anybody who has had a disability? Maybe somebody who...
not really had a disability. I just, I was awful at reading and writing and never really corrected my writing skills until like the age of like 22 when I entered the workforce. And when I thought about my time as state rep, I asked myself, I was like, what's one way to make a generational impact far after I'm gone from the state house? And I was talking with Senator David Kniezek at the time, County Commissioner Kniezek, one of my friends, like a brother, who's from the community. And he said, think of an endowment of sort. I happened to go on this Harvard program with young leaders out of the Detroit area. And while we were there, I learned about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library and why she started it. It was one of the most impoverished areas in the whole country. And she wanted to just improve literacy rates. And if you know anything about literacy rates in the state of Michigan, we have like a 30% literacy rate in certain counties, which is very low. And I thought the best thing we can do is improve somebody's ability to read, especially in a high immigrant, high refugee community where English is a second language. And that was the investment that we wanted to make, and Amity was the perfect partner for it. So we partnered with Amity, partnered with the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan, and it took 3 years to make it happen. It wasn't easy. Alhamdulillah, we launched it, and we already have delivered to date over 12,000 books.
Beautiful. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with anybody who has a disability, like in terms of like wanting to be where you are, or a politician, or someone, at that point in their lives?
That's a great question. What I often try to do is we've had several individuals come and shadow the mayor for the day who've had different disabilities, just to try to see what the life of a mayor is like, answering the questions that we have. So I tend to make that available. I'm fairly liberal in making that available to anybody who would like. Just so, I firmly believe that if you see yourself in a position of somebody who looks like you, sounds like you, has a name like you, it really opens up the horizon on what you are willing to accomplish because you see yourself in such a role. And so we've done that numerous times, and we'll continue to do that.
It's beautiful that you're allowing people to shadow you and, give them a place regardless of their abilities. Any other ways the average person can make an impact and support individuals with disabilities in our community?
Honestly, it's helping us make informed decisions. If there are community events that you think that we host currently that can be modified to be more accommodating, let us know. We don't know what we don't know. Right? That's like the best thing I can tell anybody is I only know, I'm smart enough to know what I know, and I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. And for what I don't know, I tend to lean on people who have lived different life experiences. So if there are community events that we're hosting that you think we can do a better job of, let us know. If there are investments or accommodations we can make in public spaces, whether it be the community center, whether it be at our parks, whether it be at our golf course, you name it, we're happy to also listen to that and take it into account. Let us know so we can do a better job of it. We know, for example, some folks in the past have needed assistance in construction, like wheelchair ramps at their houses. And so we've partnered with certain nonprofit organizations to try to see if we can provide them the resources to construct those. We know that some financial institutions are able to draw down dollars from the larger banks to assist families with making modifications to their homes to make them more accessible for their children or their family members. So we've begun to partner with those financial institutions to make those resources available. If you walk into the city today, we now have a full-time translator and caseworker who works downstairs. His name is Ali. And so it's the first time in the city's history he works through Wynn Metro Community Agency. And so we have him at the front desk. He assists anybody that might need translation services, but more importantly, he's a caseworker. So if there's any family in need of just about anything that you can think of, water assistance, home improvement assistance for any sort of modifications, he can sign you up right then and there, let you know what resources are available, and work with you to help you submit all those applications that are needed to help draw down those dollars. So we're really doing our best to be, kind of that connector between people and organizations.
Beautiful. Just another question regarding how can we engage, or how do you plan to engage with the disability community to ensure that their voices are heard and that their needs are met?
It's a great question. We try to do it in all facets. One, making sure that, our opportunities of employment are equal across, the entire spectrum of individuals applying. So we try to make our best accommodations there, making sure we have a diverse employee population. And obviously, when you have diverse employees, things get brought up about the types of investments you might need to make to accommodate. That just brings it to light. Secondly, our Disability Commission, like I spoke to earlier, they are a resource guide to us. They provide us recommendations. I meet with them periodically just to see what feedback they have on the types of things the city should be doing to be more inclusive in the work that we do. And third, listening to families and attending the events. I try to attend just about every community function that's out there, to my own detriment, but I enjoy it. And every time I attend, I just learn something new. Especially, we are a city that is, how do you describe this? We're a city that's maturing, especially on this front and on this topic. And so our police officers, our firefighters partners with a lot of the nonprofits throughout the city, and they're hosting a lot of, whether it's the trunk or treats, whether it's, sensory friendly dances for children and their parents. And so I do my best to try to learn and then take my learnings and incorporate them into other events and functions that we're having. So it really it's just about being accessible, being able to listen, and then apply it to what we listen to.
Is it possible for people to get in touch with the Disabilities Commission?
I believe so. It's a public commission. Their meetings are all public. And so if you look at the City of Dearborn website, there's actually a calendar of when they meet and how frequent. Their meeting minutes are all public, and you can contact any of the commissioners that are on that commission to provide any feedback or attend any meeting in person and give public input.
Wow.
Amazing. Regarding the community voicing their opinion or, having equal job opportunities for individuals with disabilities, a lot of people are afraid to ask for accommodations, or they might be suffering from something else, and they're afraid to mention that because they believe that it will be stamped on the record, and that disability is going to hinder them. Can you just speak broadly to the community about that issue?
Well, first thing I tell you is it's illegal to do that, right? I understand there's still the stigma and the fear because, I probably have past or prior experiences. What I try to do is obviously HR is a whole different division. Human Resources actually does not report to the mayor. It's one of the few divisions that does not report to the mayor. There's actually a commission that it reports to, Civil Service Commission. But what we try to do is ensure that we are casting our net wide and ensuring that we have a diverse applicant pool that's applying for the various jobs. So what that means is sometimes we're posting on LinkedIn. Sometimes we're sending out job links via WhatsApp groups because, all the Audubon on WhatsApp to try to say, hey, if you know anybody that's qualified, please have them submit and apply. What I found, at least in the last 15 months, is we've captured a much more diverse candidate pool. I can't speak to how many individuals have disabilities or not. That's something that I'm not, I don't get that data. Sometimes if it's a medical condition of sorts, it's also not shared with me. It's very held private between the HR director and that individual, and accommodations are made. So that's just, how we currently operate. So I wouldn't be fearful. I think we try to employ individuals to put them in a position where they can maximize their impact within the community. And we're happy to accommodate in any way that we can for any and all.
Beautiful. No, I just wanted to clarify that misconception because I think there's even like a big crossover between mental health and disabilities because some mental health conditions can be disabling,
of course,
such as depression. And a lot of people are afraid to, seek help because they're afraid that, there's going to be a big red mark on the record or something of that sort. So thank you for clarifying.
No, and I would even tell you within our fire department and our police department, we even have a peer-to-peer program for anybody that does suffer from any mental health issues. What they're able to do is lean on their fellow firefighters or police officers to have those conversations with those individuals. At my time as state rep, we're also able to fund a program and resource out of Wayne State University, which also works in particular with 911 public safety personnel to make sure that they have the mental health supports that they need, as well as their families, because the families of public safety personnel and emergency personnel also have a great toll on their mental health that's being taken each and every single day when their loved one is out and their life is on the line. So really do our best to accommodate as best as we can, making all the available resources made as well.
Amazing.
I noticed you're saying the word we a lot.
Yeah.
And you're very big on team building and being a team. So what are some activities that you might do with some of the team members outside of just like work, but, to grow that bond and strengthen it?
Yeah, you'll very seldom, catch me say the word I, unless I've made a mistake. That's probably when I'll say I. I'm a very big believer, things are going well, you look outside the window. Things aren't going so well, you look in the mirror, and you ask yourself that. From a team building exercise, we do our employee personnel annual barbecue. We started that last year. We'll do it again this year. With my directors and various senior level staff, we go on strategic retreats every quarter. We try to get together outside of the office in order to bond, to learn with one another, to share the stories of why you're here. I'm a big believer if you speak to why you're doing the work, people can then learn why you're doing the work. And if you understand the why, then you can get to the how, the when, the what, and all that. And I really learned that probably from my time as state rep. When I got into Lansing, I was the only Arab and only Muslim at the time. You have 148 legislators. And what I did was I walked around the floor, Democrat, Republican, I didn't care. And I had a picture where everybody sat and a picture of their portrait. And I asked everybody to tell me one fun fact about themselves. And I actually used that fun fact to then determine what policy I would partner with them on, if you were a Democrat or Republican. So the first piece of legislation actually got passed into law as a state rep was partnered with one of the most conservative members of the state house. And I'll give you like the 2-minute story about it. He was a conservative pastor out of Livonia. And we were debating gun laws one day. I don't know how it came up. And so he asked me, you ever shoot a gun before? I said, no. He's like, well, let's go to a shooting range. I'll teach you how to shoot, and we'll debate gun policy. I said, great. I took my wife, who was my fiance at the time, and when I showed up with her, he got to meet her, and we went to go shoot. And we didn't agree on a single policy as it pertained to how can you reduce gun violence. And it also turned out that my wife was the best shot of all of us, which is also scary. And but what we found was we both had a passion for public health. And the first package that him and I worked on together was a package to update, public health criteria for tuberculosis and some other diseases. And we actually got it signed into law. And that was the first bill I got signed into law. So it comes down to taking a step back, understanding why people do what they do, why they're there. And to this day, we check in on one another. We would never agree. We disagree 8 out of 10 times, but you find those two. And it's the same thing with my directors and appointees. I build those camaraderies and those relationships. I handpicked all of my directors, right? They're there for a reason. They might not know why, or at least I know between them and they know between me, but they don't know amongst one another. So they also have to have that trust between one another. So we try to create the opportunity for that trust to be built. And that's really when you get the best outcome, when you have the best team. I feel like I'm Golden State, or maybe I'm, the 96 Bulls. I don't know, whichever one you prefer.
It's a product of having a good team and knowing who you're working with.
Of course. Before Rashad takes us to our dream segment, I kind of want to talk to you about accommodations and if they have potentially changed or evolved over time, hopefully for the better. Could you tell us a little bit about accommodations in public schools or just across the board, if they've changed over time since you've become mayor? Yeah,
so I don't have any authority over the schools, and so you'd have to check with Maleko on that one. Alhamdulillah, I don't have authority over the school. That's a whole nother, that's a bigger operation than the city. As it pertains to the city buildings, just about all our bathrooms are fairly accessible. There's some adjustments that we do have to make. We're doing an assessment right now of all of our buildings, and we discovered in our bathrooms on the first floor and such is, there's no button that can help assist you in pushing open the door for all the bathrooms. And so we want to make those are again small details that come to light that can hopefully be more accommodating for any patrons visiting City Hall and or for any employees that are at City Hall. One of the biggest improvement that we're going to be making right now is in terms of parks and the playscapes that we're going to be including. That way families don't have to leave the city to try to enjoy some green space or some time with their children or with their families. That's one of the biggest investments and accommodations that we're going to be making. 3, I talked about the books investment, and for those who might have challenges of vision, being able to receive a book in Braille every single month for the first 5 years of life. That's an extreme improvement. 4, expanding our disability commission just to be that stronger recommending authority to us and a guiding principle. So I'd say those are kind of the biggest areas that we have. It's been 15 months. I don't know if that's a significant step forward, but I think, it's on our radar. It's a priority. And again, we're here to listen to see how we can do a better job.
No, I think you're doing an amazing job, and Dearborn and especially Dream really appreciates you and all your work. So
thank you.
You've done tremendous work in the past 15 months, and hopefully it's only going to continue moving forward. And with that, Rashad will take us to our Dream segment.
Yeah, and I just want to say, although you're not directly working with the schools, you are influencing them, with your parks and playground ideas. Hopefully they'll implement those as well, because
absolutely.
There are a lot of students with special needs in schools, in Dearborn especially, but all over. So
it's a growing need.
Yep, definitely. With that, we'll move on to our dream segment. Dream segment at the end of every podcast, we ask our guests what their dream is. This could be your dream pertaining to anything, whether it's disability related, whether it's not disability related, that's okay. But Abdullah, what is your dream?
That's a great question. I didn't read this question on the list of questions that you provided me. Either I didn't make it down that far, or you didn't have it on the list. Maybe I'll break it into. Maybe I'll give you like my personal Abdullah Hammoud dream, and then I'll give you my Abdullah Hammoud the mayor dream, if that's okay.
Beautiful.
So personal, I'm a big believer that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, and whatever He wills will be. And I don't fight it. I don't pray for. I only pray for that. Inshallah. My dream is to be a good father. And I mean that in the utmost sincerity. I'm 15, my daughter's 15 months. I get emotional talking about it. It's like the greatest joy of my life. I got elected in November. 30 days later, I had my daughter. 30 days later, I assumed office. And I do my best to always prioritize my family. So I really want to be the best possible father, husband, older brother, elder son to my family. And that's the ultimate of dream, making them happy. That would be like a life well spent. I can't put it any other way. Khayyar Marhum Khayyar Ali had this quote of, if you can live your life making other folks happy, that's a life well lived. And what more can you ask for? On the mayor side, it's runs in parallel. I do what I do. I usually tell people, like, how do you come up with your decisions? Where do you come up with the ideas? I say, if you were 30 and mayor and you're born and raised in the city of Dearborn, what would you do? That's like, I lean on my life experiences. Growing up in a working poor family, son of immigrants, fairly large family. Here are my life lessons, trying to apply it now to the mayor's office. What I would love, my dream is, as mayor, is I can look back and say we made a significant generational impact on the quality of life for Dearborn residents. And it's broad, but it needs to be broad, because how we each define quality of life is different for each one of us. It's going to be different for our family members, different for our children. But that's ultimately what I want to do, is with the team that we've built, build a Dearborn that we can all be proud of. And again, everybody will define that differently. We might disagree on how we define that, but I'm hoping that there are measurables that we can put in place that help keep us accountable to move the city forward, because I would love nothing more than the world to look at the city of Dearborn, which is home to a very diverse population, and say, Dearborn is the example for the rest of the country and for the rest of the world on how you do things right. And that would be, I think, a gift for all of us.
It's a wonderful dream.
Yeah,
we hope that it comes true.
Inshallah.
I think you're inching closer to making that reality. So
Inshallah.
Thank you so much, Mayor Hammoud. And with that, thank you all for tuning in to Discovering Disabilities in Dearborn with Mayor Hammoud.
Thank you to the Dream Squad.
Thank you.